The film opens with John Wick crashing his car into a wall. He emerges from the wreckage bleeding and injured. He puts pressure on a wound in his stomach and watches a video of his late wife Helen on the beach before collapsing. A few days earlier, on a cloudy day, John awoke and began remembering his time with Helen. He recalls a dinner they had together and the sad moment when she fell into his arms. Then we see him at the hospital with Helen, kissing her forehead as the doctor leaves. John, heartbroken, is holding his wife's necklace. We then learn that Helen was afflicted with a disease that ultimately killed her. John gets into his car and heads to the funeral. After some time, everyone has left the grave, leaving only John standing. A man is watching him from a distance. Following the service, an old friend named Marcus approaches him and expresses his condolences, checking in as a good friend would. The two have a brief conversation before Marcus bids him farewell. After the funeral, John returns home and begins cleaning up. He hears the doorbell ring and sees a delivery lady carrying a package. She gives him the box, which contains a small beagle. When he opens it, he discovers a note from his late wife, Helen. In the note, she says she accepts her fate and wishes John to find happiness and love again, beginning with this puppy. John became very emotional while reading the latter and started crying. He takes the puppy out of the box and notices the flower-decorated collar, which leads him to believe Helen named the dog Daisy. Later, he gently lifts the puppy from his bed and places her on the floor. The following day, John is woken up by the boy climbing onto his bed and following him around the house. He prepares cornflakes for the dog and himself, decides to buy proper puppy food, and drives her around in his vintage 1969 Ford Mustang Mach 1. During a gas stop, John is approached by Joseph Tarasov and two other mobsters. Joseph admires John's car and asks about the price, to which John replies that it is not for sale. Joseph insults him in Russian, claiming that everything has a price. John then says, "Not this," in fluent Russian, which enrages Joseph until one of his companions restrains him, allowing John to drive away carefree. Later that day, John goes to an abandoned construction site and starts driving recklessly, drifting to vent his frustration. He goes round and round, narrowly avoiding hitting some trucks before coming to a stop. Later, he jumps into bed and falls asleep. Daisy needs to relieve herself outside at night, so he takes her downstairs. Two shadowy figures confront him, and a third person hits him on the head with a bat. As John is lying on the ground, the men attack Daisy, and one of them kills her. They demand John's car keys, and when they find them, the man who whacked him removes his mask, revealing himself as Joseph. He swears at John before knocking him out cold. After waking up, John discovers his lifeless pet and lies beside it. He then buries the dog and cleans up the aftermath in his home, as memories of his wife and the brutal attack the night before continue to haunt him. Meanwhile, Joseph takes John's Mustang to Aurelio's store, where he demands clean papers and a new number. However, Aurelio recognizes the vehicle and wants to know where Joseph got it. He brags about stealing the car, and Aurelio orders him to leave the shop right away. Joseph responds arrogantly, insisting that they own him. Aurelio smacks him and silences him, claiming that he works with his father. One of the henchmen takes out his gun, but the other prevents him from shooting. Joseph then insults Aurelio and threatens to move his business elsewhere. Later, John stops by the shop and asks about the car. Aurelio responds that the car was here and that Joseph is Vigo's son. Vigo later calls Aurelio and asks him why he struck his son. Aurelio simply responds, "Because he stole John Wick's car and killed his dog, sir." In response, Vigo simply says, "Oh." Vigo, looking concerned, goes to his penthouse and informs his henchmen that he wishes to see his son. Meanwhile, John enters his basement with a sledgehammer and starts smashing the floor open. It turns out to be an arsenal of weapons and gold coins. Vigo pays a visit to Joseph's home to resolve the issue. He initially compliments him on his stylish jacket before punching him in the stomach to tell him he made a mistake. Despite his henchman's request to leave, Vigo insists on staying. He then tells Joseph that John Wick, also known as Baba Yaga or the Boogeyman, used to be associated with him before retiring to marry Helen. Vigo describes an incident in which he witnessed John kill 3 men in a bar with only a pencil. He then reveals that when John decided to retire, he was given an impossible task: carry out several high-profile assassinations within a short period of time. To everyone's surprise, John managed to complete the impossible task, which was crucial in establishing the Tarasov Empire. Joseph claims he can handle the situation and complete the task, but Vigo warns him that John will come after him and he will not be able to escape his fate. Vigo then attempts to make amends by calling John, but he hangs up, indicating that they are in serious trouble. That night, John gets locked and loaded knowing Vigo has sent a team of assassins to his house. However, they quickly realize their mistake in confronting the boogeyman face to face. John quickly neutralizes all opponents without hesitation or difficulty. He fights several assailants before killing one of them. Vigo sent 12 assassins, which is no problem for John, who blasts his way through them all. After the fight, a police officer approaches the front door and knocks. John addresses the officer by name and inquires whether there has been a noise complaint. The officer confirms and asks if John has returned to the game, referring to the lifeless body visible behind him. John claims he's just cleaning up, and the officer walks away. To deal with the aftermath and dispose of the deceased, John hires an underworld cleanup crew. It's clear that they realize this won't be their last time helping him. Meanwhile, Vigo approaches Marcus, John's acquaintance, and offers him a lucrative $2 million contract to assassinate him. Vigo also directs his assistant, Avi, to publicize the job opening to other potential candidates. Marcus happily accepts the offer. John decides to visit the New York Continental Hotel, which caters exclusively to the criminal underworld. All Continental hotels strictly prohibit assassinations on their premises. Among the familiar faces, John recognizes Perkins and Charon. He greets his friend and books a room with assassin's currency. We are then introduced to Winston, the hotel's manager. When John inquires about Yosef's whereabouts, Winston informs him that Yosef is at the Red Circle nightclub. John immediately goes to the club, where Yosef and his friends are having a good time. He then runs into an old acquaintance and suggests that he take the day off, which the man graciously accepts. Inside the club, Yosef is relaxing in the bathhouse. Suddenly, John appears on the club's lower level and murders one of Yosef's colleagues. When Yosef spots John, he flees for his life. John begins shooting at the remaining hitmen, and although he kills all of them, Yosef appears to have made a lucky escape. Yosef then summons his man, Victor, only to be met with taunts from Baba Yaga on the other end. John eventually returns to the Continental Hotel and informs Karen that he requires a medic in his room. As the medic treats his stomach injury, the doctor warns him to take it easy to avoid tearing his sutures. John, on the other hand, does not understand what easy means. Later that night, Marcus climbs to the rooftop of a building across the street and positions his sniper rifle. He sees John sleeping, but he also notices someone entering through the mirror and fires a warning shot at him. Perkins then starts shooting at him, but he narrowly avoids her attacks. Vigo is offering $4 million to break the Continental's rules and kill John. He fights Perkins and eventually traps her in a headlock, offering her mercy in exchange for useful information. Perkins reveals that Vigo keeps the majority of his riches in a church basement and provides the location. He knocks her out and leaves her with Harry in exchange for a gold coin. Unbeknownst to Harry, Perkins has dislocated her thumb and is slipping away. She escapes, defeats him in a fight, and places a pillow on his head before shooting through it. John then goes to Vigo's secret stash of goodies inside the chapel. He draws a gun, shoots the priest, and then kills everyone who challenges him. He orders the priest to take him to the vault or die. He is then led into the vault room and unlocks the gate. John dismisses the ladies in the vault and sets fire to the entire structure, costing Vigo his fortune. He goes outside to camp on top of a building near the chapel. He sees Vigo and his main crew enter the premises. A firefight ensues with John confronting Vigo's men. He kills the majority of them until one assailant jumps into an SUV. As John reloads and takes down another enemy, he is clobbered and falls to the ground. Vigo takes advantage of the opportunity to apprehend John. When Vigo wakes up, he wonders why he is seeking vengeance for a car and a dog. John reveals that Yosef stole the life of his dog, a gift from his late wife, and warns Vigo that he must either hand over Yosef or die alongside him. Vigo abandons him to his thugs, who begin to kill him. However, Marcus shoots one of the hitmen, allowing John to take out the others. John then runs out into the street, where Vigo's escape vehicle is visible, and kills the driver. He then points his gun at Vigo, forcing him to reveal that Yosef is hiding in a Brooklyn safe house. John decides to leave him alone. At the safe house, we see Yosef playing video games with one of his mercenaries. Multiple teams and snipers cover the area around him. As they all check in, we notice that John also checks in. He takes the unconscious man's sniper rifle and starts firing at will, with deadly precision. Yosef takes off, and his getaway vehicles erupt in flames. He flees, but John eventually catches up with him and shoots him in the stomach and then the head without hesitation. After John has exacted his revenge, he thanks Marcus for his assistance. But little do they know, Perkins discovers the two of them conversing. She reports her findings to Vigo, who orders his henchmen to trap Marcus inside his home. The scene cuts to Vigo calling John and explaining that Marcus was apprehended for failing to finish his job. As they attack and are about to finish him, Marcus makes a last stand and kills a few men before being fatally shot by Perkins. Vigo then proceeds to a helicopter that will take him out of the city. The plan is for John to visit Marcus's house, where Perkins will ambush him. However, she is summoned to a meeting with Winston, the Continental Hotel's proprietor. They meet, and Winston informs her that she has violated the Continental's rules, resulting in the revocation of both her membership and her life. After discovering Marcus's lifeless body, John embarks on a mission to kill Vigo and destroy everything he stands for. He gets into his car, sees Vigo and his men on their way to the helicopter, and attempts to ram them. Vigo orders Avi to take out John, but his vehicle collides with another SUV, causing it to swerve and fall overboard. As they play bumper cars, John makes an amazing move that causes Vigo's car to collide with a pole. The Russians then rush out of the SUV and shoot at John, but he instinctively uses his car as a shield and battering ram, killing all of his attackers. Avi gets out of the car and tries to do something, but he is also killed. Vigo then rams his SUV into John's car, but John manages to get out before the car goes overboard. With both vehicles out of the picture, the two engage in a proper Western-style standoff before dropping their weapons. It's time to get dirty, so they engage in intense hand-to-hand combat in the rain. It's a fairly even match until Vigo pulls out a knife. However, John uses the blade to his advantage, allowing it to strike him in the stomach, which he then uses as leverage to break Vigo's arm. He then drives the knife into Vigo's chest. They sit for about a minute as Vigo, stunned, realizes John has done all of this for a dog. John then walks away, leaving him to die. The scene then returns to the beginning, with John still bleeding out but determined to continue. After seeing Helen's video, he stops at a dog shelter to treat his wound. He also ends up adopting a pit bull before returning home. Alright, that's a wrap for today. If you enjoyed the video, hit like, it really helps the channel. Leave a comment with your thoughts and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching and see you next time.